Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for yet another healthcare session here at JNUC. We are so excited to have this formal healthcare track to bring you customer-led sessions, of course, deep dives from the Jamf healthcare team, and this session, a deep panel discussion with our partners and customers around the world. If you hadn't had an opportunity to see some of those prior sessions, we'd really encourage you to. We've really broadened our focus of healthcare solutions at Jamf, starting with experience solutions for patients at the bedside years ago, but broadening out to clinical communication and telehealth workflows driven by the global pandemic. I'd encourage you again to attend those other sessions because today is all about something different, our customers and partners and how they're succeeding in their environments. My name's Adam Mahmood. I'm the Solution Marketing Manager of Healthcare at Jamf. And as I mentioned, today is such a fun discussion where first we can dig in with our panelists and learn a little bit more about them, understand the Apple deployments that they support in their worlds, scratch into some of the tools and technologies and partners that make those deployments come alive, and how they can see that through and drive change and manage a successful outcome in their environment. So with that, I'd love to introduce our panelists, first with Erin. Erin?
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin from UCLA Health in sunny California. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Ed Horowitz from University of Colorado Health in both sunny and snowy Denver, and glad to be here.
Hi there, Mike Zingler from Alberta Health Services, and I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and it's great to be here.
Hi there, this is Carlos Alarcón from ionIDe Telematics in Spain.
Thank you all for joining us here today. Now, you all come from different walks of life, different parts of an organization, and different parts of the world. So would love to just learn a little bit more, how do you see yourself as someone who supports patients and providers? And can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your background? Erin, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I've been a physical therapist for many years and was working as a physical therapist at UCLA prior to transitioning to the clinical integration team at UCLA. Working as a physical therapist on the floors with other clinicians, I experienced and witnessed the device challenges and how it really impacted patient care. So now as a team member of the clinical integration team and MDM admin for clinical comms, I've been able to apply my hospital experience and my knowledge to my work. So our main goal is to provide devices that help the clinicians do their job, devices that understand their workflows and their needs. And another goal for us has been to provide the seamless support in the background so that the clinicians can focus on patient care.
It's always that balance, right? Of like, how can you kind of ensure that your teams can deliver that, but it's not a huge burden on them, or there aren't, crazy new inefficiencies that pop up. So I love that. Thanks. Ed.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, my background's a little varied too. I started out running a refugee health center in DC for a long time, and then was at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, running a lot of the community health programs and some of the EPI programs, and have been at the University of Colorado Health for the last 5 years, much more in an inpatient or hospital setting across our system. So I've been working a lot with our multimedia setup, from both our interactive TV systems to bring in for the patient experience, integrating that with kind of our EMR with Epic, and kind of working to hopefully make the patient education focus and bring that in an easier sense for staff, physicians to really interact and really give the best healthcare they can.
Love it. Love it. Mike.
Hi, everybody. Mike Zingler, a little bit different background. I've spent a good portion of my career in sales and marketing and product development. And about 10 years ago, I was offered a position at Alberta Health Services in contract negotiation, which I got to say, it provided me a real good, deep insight into the different aspects of all sorts of IT solutions that we were using across the healthcare continuum. And the last 5 years I've spent in this role as patient and product services that I've really been focused on. How do we deliver the right solution? Most of it's been TV services, but as those are obviously sort of moving away and they're older, we're trying to look at what's the best solution we can put at the bedside. And so I've been really focused on trying to understand the patient needs, the clinician's needs, and the provider needs as we go forward. So this has been very exciting, and it's great to work with a bunch of professionals like this panel discussion. So thanks.
We're excited to have you. Thanks, Mike. And Carlos.
Hi. My background is I am an R&D engineer at the UNIDE. Our company has been providing entertainment systems in hospitals in Spain for more than 10 years, basically TVs. But then we have moved first to bedside PCs first, so patients were able to watch TV in there. And in the last years, we are now deploying bedside iPads and Apple TVs for patient entertainment. So these iPads enable patients to watch TV, call their relatives, nurses, fill up customer satisfaction surveys, meal ordering, and many other things. We also provide tools for doctors and nurses so they can contact the patients without any physical contact.
Thanks so much, Carlos. Again, we're so happy to have you, especially from across the pond, so to speak. So, moving a little deeper, I suppose, into the conversation, we'd love to learn a little bit more about those Apple deployments that are now in your world. Mike, maybe we can start with you. You spoke about kind of a history of entertainment and television. How is that transitioned, and can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we spent a lot of time focused on obviously trying to figure out what's the next steps for patient entertainment, although I would argue it's probably more patient distraction. And what does that really look like? And so with the surveys we've done, with the research we've done, and with now the proof of concepts that we've moved into, we really believe that a bedside tablet is something that will certainly address it. And going back to where we did this, there was a lot of time spent on trying to understand what everybody needs. And part of that was really, how do we deploy this into the patient environment? And there's many different aspects within that. And we're touching everything from what type of cases do we provide to the MDM, and that's how we got involved with Jamf. And how do we deploy that? How do we manage it? How do we service it and support it? And so it's been a real learning exercise, but it's been very successful as well. We've got some very happy people and patients, so it's been great.
It's so cool to hear. Ed, how does that maybe compare with maybe the focuses in your environment and what devices are deployed?
Yeah, so it's very similar. You have been using iPads or tablets, Android, but we've transitioned to iPads for the last few years for Epic Bedside, and trying to integrate that for our patients to deliver kind of their bedside, whether it's entertainment or distraction, as Mike said, which makes sense. We've also been incorporating Apple TVs because I look at it slightly different in that we're using the TVs almost as a universal monitor that we hope to, where we're kind of bringing everything from there, whether it's patient whiteboard, the whatever happens to be on the tablet, whether it's TV, whether it's bedside. So an interactive kind of proponent or way that we look at is kind of, we're all searching for that holy grail to kind of make everything easier and bring everything together. So it's similar, but a little bit different, but with the ultimate goal, just like I think Mike and my other colleagues, to kind of make everything easier for physicians, for nurses, for staff overall, and to really deliver the best healthcare, which is the bottom line, kind of for all of us.
Absolutely. It's always, hopefully aligned around that goal, right? Not only providing the best options for the patient, but like I kind of hinted at earlier with Aaron, like How do we not add burden to providers in the process of delivering care? We know the burnout scenario is real, right? And technology is playing into that. So how do we remove that, or I guess take steps to pull it back, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm wondering, Ed, you mentioned you're an Epic shop. So curious, are you willing to share a little more detail of on those bedside iPads? What does the app strategy look like?
So I think a little bit differently than some folks, is using Jamf, but we open up the tablets completely for patients. And that's where Healthcare Listener for us has been really critical, because we know we can reset everything within the tablet. So the tablet is kind of available for the patient to do whatever they want with it. We do use Bedside, which we've customized. And now that Bedside and MyChart, which we branded as My Health Connection, for us is we're kind of bringing it into one. So the tablet becomes hopefully that main focus for patients, where they can kind of utilize everything from Epic, like all their current labs, ordering food, whatever they want on that tablet. And so it does become that central focus, really, that they can kind of do with whatever they want. I keep repeating that, but it's kind of for, I think, focus, and then that takes the burden off of the nurses, especially in terms of care that they have to provide in the room for one-on-one for patients.
I actually love that you reemphasized the whatever they want point, because I think that, obviously I'm very biased to this, but we've had a number of customers that had used Jamf solutions to do just that and kind of provide this a la carte option. I love that the lawn service is here doing the work right in the middle of the recording. Work from home is real, everybody, right? But that patients sometimes need that option to just go choose what they need. At the same time, there's been these deployments where we need to provide a very specific offering. Let's say, Mike, what you referenced, kind of this virtual rounding solution, or virtual patient to family visitation, I should mention. So it's kind of cool that you can accomplish both, right? Mike, and from you, any thoughts on how that compares with maybe the phases of your iPads?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've discovered as well is there seems to be a perception with patients and with providers and clinicians that iPads can do everything and they should do everything. And so one of the struggles we've come against is people are want to use it for everything. So I think sometimes it's good that the iPad just does one thing. And then there's other times where it makes sense to make it do everything. And so that's some of the struggles we've seen and working through it,
Ed, go ahead. It sounds like maybe you had a thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree with that, but one of the things we've been able to do, and I think where Jamf for us has been helpful, is the way that we can delineate for different groups to have different roles within those iPads. So, the patient can kind of focus on whether it's bedside, whether it's, they're watching TV, whether they're on Netflix, but they can also, the physician, the nurses could come in, look at the whiteboard, anything that the patient might have entered, actually have that up on screen while the patient's still watching TV. For example, they could still be watching The Price is Right, but then everybody can see what's going on with the patient. And it kind of, I think, incorporates in a different way. And that's the way we were able to bring in for us during the COVID crisis, with integrating Microsoft Teams, and how we were able to kind of use the iPads to reach family members and to have interactive visits, especially for even end-of-life patients, for example.
Absolutely. That flexibility is, I think, it's important. And we've heard that from a number of our customers, that they feel just, and specifically IT teams there, right? They feel lucky that they've had a tool in their environment that empowers them to be flexible. And for example, there's another session that you can all attend here at JNUC where James Raffel from Geisinger speaks, and he kind of tells their story with Apple transformation initiatives over the years. But they talk about 1,000 iPads that were intended for one purpose that were repurposed for providers to use for telehealth from home, right? So who would have thought, right? So, right. I love these discussions. I could go on all day. Aaron, I'm curious from your world. You of course you have some bedside iPad projects, but really in your realm, you're a little more focused on another area. Do you want to tell us maybe a little more in the background?
Sure, I can give you the whole background behind it. It's a bit of a journey that we've had. So when I joined the clinical integration team, I came on and there were Androids and another MDM in place. And so despite a ton of troubleshooting and a ton of work that we've tried to do, we really haven't been able to get the phones and MDM to work the way we need it to work. So just to name a few issues that we've had, the phones have had ongoing audio issues. We found that the phones aren't compatible with some key apps like Zoom, which is something we've really wanted during COVID. We're moving to Vocera Vina, which we haven't been able to get work on the Androids either. But we've been able to get those configured on the iPhones. From the MDM side, it really hasn't been reliable for us. I personally had to manually upgrade the OS build on almost 1,000 Androids in production. The iPad team had to also manually update the bedside iPads as well. So I've been really lucky to be involved in the decision-making process to move from to iPhones in Jamf. The iPhones have been a huge, easy sell to the clinicians because they've been asking for iPhones since day one. And then as far as the Jamf, we're just in the building stages now, but so far I've been incredibly impressed with the ease of configuration and the upgrades. And I really think I didn't know what I was missing before. As far as the bedside, we are going to be adding that in the future. That's on our roadmap. So another thing to look forward to is the team will not have to manually update those bedside iPads. So lots of good things to look forward to.
That's very cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, again, consistent themes, but how do we remove touch points for frontline care or not add new touch points is maybe a better way to say it. Well, kind of still making good on the end goal of patient, improvement, et cetera. So cool. Mike or Ed, thoughts from your end? You both have iPhones deployed, or I should say at least mobility tools for clinicians. Tell us maybe about your world. How does that align with what Aaron shared? Maybe Ed, we can start with you.
Sure. So we do use iPhones as well. We've been using 8s and now probably moving into SEs. We've deployed Rover on them as well as Vocera, like Aaron was talking about. And those have been used by the whole care team, nurses especially, by the EVS crew, by transport, pretty much everybody. And that's tied in, and we have that tied in into the MDM, into Jamf as well. We're also seeing smaller amounts of the doctors are actually looking for iPad minis now is what they think they want. And we want to tie that in potentially. But so it's and just like with Aaron, we started way back, and I won't go into the details, but the same kind of thing where working with Androids, trying hard to incorporate that. And it was just not a viable solution, unfortunately, with a lot of work that was put in. So we've moved pretty much almost completely to an iOS solution with a mix of phones and iPads.
Yeah, we're very very similar with that. We a little bit different. We provide devices to all our staff. So we've got tens of thousands of devices out there. I think the vast majority of them are iOS devices, even though we give them the option of Android. And then we also have a bunch of devices that we use just for the clinical side of things. And those are all iOS. We've really standardized on that as a delivery platform. And so whether it's an iPhone for the Rover for Epic, or it's just providing an iPhone for staff that are going to patients' houses for remote solutions, or we're now looking at obviously iPads, and that seems to be something that's really, really growing. Is is the whole iPad deployment and the things that it can do that other devices we used in previous worlds did. But now this is an iPad is actually much cheaper. We're looking at things like translation services, and how do we load up a couple apps for translation services and use that instead of a $10,000 cart with a PC and a fancy wheels and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of little opportunities here for Apple deployments. I know our Apple reps are extremely thrilled as we continue to buy hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more devices. So.
I love it. You just kind of sharing that again. I think that thinking about a $10,000 cart that has like a single purpose, and not to say that it doesn't serve that purpose well, right? But just hearing you all, and frankly, it's not exclusively just patient solutions, it's patient or clinical, like that flexibility that these devices provide where, if there's a new need and we need to layer a new app into our strategy on that device, I think that's just such a empowering and kind of freeing thing for an organization, because they know they have this foundation in Apple, but really it has such a robust set of kind of partner stacks or layers that you can organize around it for a purpose, which you've all shared with us here today. So thank you for kind of scratching in. We have kind of a different approach with some partner organizations, and it's why we wanted to invite Carlos today here to show us how in some parts of the world, there are healthcare orgs that maybe for one reason or another haven't advanced the discipline of their own internal or IT team, or for whatever reason, it makes better sense for them to outsource and kind of look for a partner to maybe deliver one of these transformation initiatives. And that's why I love ionIDe, because although they have both clinical solutions on iOS as well as patient care solutions, in my opinion, they've kind of, to Mike, as you were just speaking about, in such an elegant way, pulled them all together in really one experience for a patient. So Carlos, I'd love to bring you in here and maybe have you just kind of take the audience through the video we play, which showcases the patient apps on your, as part of your solution.
Sure. This video shows a summary of the apps we have for patients. There is the patient information app, which you can see right now, which will give the patient a customized welcome tour. Also, we handle the admission of the patient, and we'll give shortcuts to hospital and services information. There is also the communication app, which can be used for telephony calls, video calls, nursery calls as well. And the entertainment app is being used mainly for the TV and radio broadcastings, premium TV, access to games, music, social network, newspaper, this kind of stuff.
Deploy your solution. Do they choose from these options, or do they get all of the options you just showed us?
They can choose whatever they want, but this is the suite, the standard suite. It can be programmed and modified the options for every customer, but most of them use all of them.
That's very cool. I imagine that perhaps sometimes if they start with maybe one of the app or one of the parts of the solution, then yes, over time they add more.
Sure. The way we enter in the hospitals mainly is because of the retirement system. They used to provide that we use in all TVs. So basically we enter there using the broadcasting, but later we show them the many features they can use the iPad for. For sure, the calls is a very good feature they love.
Very cool. Now, Carlos, you also have a unique approach in that you, ionIDe, as a partner of Jamf, manage these devices as a service to the hospital. So although your teams do all of the heavy lifting with Jamf, you've done some interesting things to bring forward some options for that IT staff at the hospital. Do you want to take us through what we see in this next video here?
Yes, of course. We provide the hospitals a tool to manage their devices. So in this video, we show how they assign a patient to a room and so to the device. Internally, it is just making the iPad to join to a certain Jamf smart group. So when there is a patient, it is in a smart group. When there is no patient, it's in another. This tool is accessed through the web page. So first you have to log in. Then you have to go over the device, doing a lookup. And then you can assign a patient. Here in the right, you can see what would be the screen for the patient at this exact moment. Once you assign the patient, internally it is changing the smart group for the device. So it will send a notification to the iPad, and it will begin first doing a welcome tour. After the welcome tour, it will begin setting up with the apps and setting up the stuff. Also, we'll give the patient the option to install whatever application he wants through the self-service. So mainly the patient can use the iPad for whatever they want, apart from watching TV and communicating with the relatives.
Flow. And of course, for clarification for any of the viewers, Jamf doesn't know who the patient is. It's of course ionIDe who has the integration to the EMR, hence why you're able to show the patient name, etc. But Carlos, just to reiterate and make sure I clarify my understanding, in the background, you're simply moving between groups in Jamf to kind of expose applications and settings and resources on the device.
Right, that's right. That's what we are doing beneath.
Love it. You took it one step further too, which was to make some of those functions available directly within the iPad app. And when I mean those functions, I mean the Jamf integration functions. So do you mind, again, sharing us what's happening in this last video?
Okay, this last video is showing how the user will remove the application he have installed, so the data is not there anymore. So well, it was pretty fast. The user went to my iPad and then click on the clean up my data and then confirm. After the confirm, it was showing a in progress screen, and after a few minutes, whenever we are sure that all the applications got removed, the iPad is back again as a new iPad ready for a new patient.
It's again, just really cool creativity. I think many on the line, Ed and Mike, referenced the automated tools we have. Our healthcare listener, Jamf, has, I should say, that automatically erases an iPad based on a patient discharge and reconfigures it with Apple Business Manager. But because you deliver this as an experience and it's your own apps and you're very rigorous about which apps are on the device, you're able to do this kind of interesting process between patients. And again, I love the creativity. So, Ed or Mike, any quick thoughts from you or the rest of the group of, maybe the value of this kind of overall solution? Any input?
I love it. I mean, I think that we're all, trying to head to a single easy solution kind of for everybody, certainly from a patient's perspective. And again, to bring it back so it removes that amount of work for, staff, physicians, nurses, everyone else. So I'm impressed. I like it. I like that idea. I think it's what we're trying to achieve in that same way. So I think it's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, I agree. I look at what Carlos has done with his the whole experience is exactly the kind of thing I think that simplifies things. And to be honest with you, you couldn't get it any better than that. You just need to simplify it for the patients. They're not in condition to really think about all the things that they have to do. They're not technicians, and neither are the frontline staff. So anything you do to make it easier is a great thing.
I think that is the perfect segue to our fourth topic, which is, as we keep coming back to, how do we make things easy for frontline staff and IT and anybody in between? So would love to, again, open it up to the group. Perhaps, Mike, you'd love to jump right back in first. What guidance would you have to somebody who's maybe brand new on a path around Apple mobility in their hospital?
Oh gosh, I think as your chart outlines, I think really key is to, before you just start dropping devices in and thinking that you got a solution for everybody with this brand new little tool, you start working with the different groups and you get alignment. So obviously the leadership alignment's critically important. You need to work with the site leadership as well as all the groups within the site. So whether that's the facilities folks or the engineering, clinical engineering that help you actually deal with devices that are maybe you got soiled, or you work with the frontline nursing staff or the nurse managers, just really make sure that that whatever you're doing works within their workflow. I think it's important that groups like infection prevention and control, having a look at the cases that you have, and that's really key. So the alignment with all the people going through it, I think, is absolutely critical as you start. And also in the back end, making sure that you spend time with the network folks and the security guys to make sure that everything's set up for it. We ran into a couple little speed bumps where we were actually, because the devices were on being put in front of a patient, we wanted to keep it on the public network. And we were kicking devices out every day just to make sure that we had a clean network. And that all of a sudden caused concerns with the patients because their devices were kicked out. So that's something that's self-imposed, but you address it, you deal with it, but understanding it ahead of time is critically important. So yeah, no, there's a bunch of things that we need to do.
Love the guidance. Aaron, thoughts from your end?
Sure, I agree with everything that Mike said. Absolutely. All of those details are perfect. The key, I think, is to have clinicians and patient care as a focus when making any decisions. I think in addition to what Mike said, I think the guidance I would give is to get information and learn from your peers, which is probably the main reason we're all here today, to hear the stories, to hear the successes and the lessons learned. All of the troubleshooting, the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears that I spent, or our team spent, and our UCLA Health as a whole spent trying to get the Androids and MDM to work. Tons of lessons learned there. And I know that our team would always love to share what we've learned to help others. And I feel from my experience that the Jamf community feels that way too. Even during the time when UCLA was trying to find a solution for all the issues that we were having, we spoke with UCSD and UCSF, and they already had Jamf in iPhones. And talking to them, we found so many parallels in our journey, and that really helped us to find the right path to Jamf in iPhones. And we still continue to build relationships and learn from other IT support people, other facilities, other Jamf users. So we continue to learn and teach each other, which I think is invaluable and I'm incredibly thankful for.
I love your point about community, because case in point, in our rehearsal for this presentation, or this panel rather, we had about a 20-minute kind of diversion into talking about cases for iPhones and pros and cons, et cetera, right? So there's just so much you can learn that isn't, out on frankly, on a Jamf website or anything else, right? So thank you for making that point. Ed, any thoughts from you?
Again, just like Aaron, I think everything that the points that people made were excellent and right on there. And it's those little things that can trip you up that kind of as a group we can work to solve. I know, especially now during the pandemic and, for this foreseeable future, things like how do we clean these, like UV cleaners, how to then in the workflow do you do that, for example, and bring that back, has been huge. And it's, one little piece, but it could be a huge roadblock. So working with other folks, getting feedback from other folks, and that kind of goes back to the cases as well as just how things move around, is huge. And I think like the Jamf community, and yeah, these are things that you guys aren't dealing with specifically, but Jamf has kind of brought us all together. So it's a good way to bring these up. And we've been really helped by talking with other folks, and just hearing other people's take on this panel has been tremendous. So it's just to reiterate really or support what everything everybody else said.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we'll have to leave it at that for time today. I again want to just stress thank you so much to all of you, Ed, Aaron, Mike, Carlos, for joining us for this discussion. Feel free to submit any last questions through the system if you're still watching. And as I mentioned earlier, please check out the other healthcare track sessions here at JNUC. You don't want to miss them. I have to give another shout out to Eric Boyd, who was mentioned here. He has 2 sessions from UC San Diego Health, James Raffel from Geisinger, a session, as well as Brent Ellison from University of Utah Rehab Hospital, all different sessions about their Apple deployments. We briefly mentioned virtual visits powered by Jamf, a new telehealth inpatient workflow that we developed in response to the pandemic. Jamf is giving this away for free to any institution through December of this year. If you are interested to learn more, we would love to talk to you. So head over to that URL or scan that QR code and I'll let you get in touch with us. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.